to Joseon with Jane. Today's video is going to be about 정순왕후. See, you might not recognize her name, but actually she is a figure that's been portrayed quite a few times in sageuk or historical K-dramas. A notable instance would be in, I forget the name of the movie, but Hyunbin is in it, and Han Jimin plays Queen Jeongsun in that movie. I will find the name and put it here, but good movie. Definitely recommend it if you want to, watch something that's a little Joseon Dynasty vibey. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, so into who Queen Jeongsun was. She was from the Gyeongju Kim clan, and she was the second queen of King Yeongjo. So I don't think we ever talked about Yeongjo before, but Yeongjo, if you've watched Dongi, here, sorry I'm making a lot of K-drama references, but Yeongjo was a son of Sukjong, and he was also the father of Crown Prince Sado, the prince who was locked in a twiji, like a little box kind of thing, and killed. So yeah, she was the second wife of that king. Her father was Kim Han-gu, otherwise known as Ohung Buwongun, and her mother was the Wonpung Bubuin from the Wonju Won clan. And she also had a brother. I think she actually had more than one, but there's one specific brother, Kim Kwiju, that we're actually going to talk about later, so just keep that in mind. So how did she become queen? You might be asking second queen? Who was the first queen? Well, King Yeongjo actually was married before, but in 1757, his first wife, who was Joseon, died. So later in 1759, he was searching for a new wife, and there was a selection process, and Queen Jeongsun was chosen. Interesting thing here, kind of creepy now that we think about it, but Yeongjo was 66 when he married Queen Jeongsun, who was only 15 years old at the time. So it was a huge age gap. It was like a child and a grandfather almost, basically. So yeah, huge age gap. She was super young when she married this super old king. And actually, this is an interesting little fun fact. You might have seen this in a couple K-dramas, but it's not official history, but it is widely believed that during the selection process, King Yeongjo asked the candidates what's the best flower in the world, and all the other candidates mentioned flowers like roses, peonies, things like that, but Queen Jeongsun answered that 백성을 따뜻하게 하는 목화꽃이 가장 좋다. So she was basically saying that cotton flowers, because they warm the people of Joseon because they're used in clothes and things like that, that it's the most important and that it's the most beautiful. And she's kind of believed to have answered a lot of Yeongjo's questions in a really wise, thought-provoking way. For example, one used a lot in media nowadays is when he asked, "What's the deepest thing in the world?" and she said, "It's a human heart." So yeah, and another interesting thing about her was that she actually has an honorary title that no one actually uses. Her honorary title is 예순대비, but no one really uses it. And going back to her at the time of first becoming queen, as we've already established, she was super young. Super young means gullible, naive, easily manipulated. So she really had no political influence when she first entered the court. So there was a Inmo incident in 1762, but she was unable to intervene in that. So this was the incident when Yeongjo killed his son, Crown Prince Sado. I actually have a video about this if you go look through the other videos in my channel. When her stepson, basically, who was the crown prince, was killed, she was unable to really do anything. And at the time, even a low-ranking court lady was able to speak out against Queen Jeongsun, which is unheard of. You don't ever speak out against the queen, but that just goes to show how little power and authority this little young girl actually had in the royal court. And kind of adding to this, her clan had a lot of conflict with Jeongjo's maternal family. So who's Jeongjo? These are a lot of Korean names here, sorry if I'm confusing you, but basically you have Yeongjo here. This is Yeongjo, old king that she married. Yeongjo had a son, Crown Prince Sado, who he killed, and then Crown Prince Sado had a son who would later become Jeongjo. So Jeongjo was basically her step-grandson. Yeah, that's the relationship. And her clan, her family, had a conflict with Jeongjo's maternal family, who was the Pungsan-hong clan. So you might think that their relationship, Jeongjo and Queen Jeongsun, was like super horrible, but actually when he was the crown prince, Jeongjo is said to have trusted Queen Jeongsun and her clan more than actually his own maternal grandfather, who was Hong Ponghan. Remember that name. And yeah, that's actually pretty interesting, but you have to remember that because it kind of becomes important later, because that relationship changes and it really affects how this character, this woman, is viewed today in media, by historians, everything. And another interesting thing to mention with her is that she has some wild misunderstandings related to Crown Prince Hado, probably because like Crown Prince Hado himself is a pretty widely talked about figure, because you know, it's not every day that a king decides to kill his crown prince and his son. But anyways, there was a story that Queen Jeongsun seduced Crown Prince Sado, who was her stepson, and held a grudge after he rejected her. But no, this is a baseless rumor. I don't know why it's still believed, but you know, it's just something that people seem to think happened, but it did not. Anyways, so moving on to another very important point in her life. You remember how I said that King Jeongjo and Queen Jeongsun, no matter how much like kind of bad blood their clans had, they actually had a pretty good relationship? That changes. That changes when King Jeongjo decides to purge Kim Gyu-ju, her brother. This is the name that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Her brother was purged by her step-grandson. So basically, Kim Gyu-ju took the lead in attacking Hong Ponghan, who was the maternal grandfather of King Jeongjo, but then once King Jeongjo took the throne, he purged him. So her Queen Jeongsun's brother was essentially exiled and punished, and after that, her clan lost a lot of political power. So yeah, as you can probably imagine, after that happened, when someone purges your older brother, it becomes really hard to maintain a good relationship with them. So I'm messing up my words. So before this, she was kind of more of a protector, sort of like a mutual with him. But then after this incident, their relationship never really recovered, and she went from more of a protector to a check against his power. And the last key point that I'm going to mention in this video, because this is, after all, supposed to be an overview of who she was, is about her relationship with the Pyeokpa. So if you've watched a lot of Korean Joseon Dynasty dramas, you'll know that there are a couple different political factions. There's Noron, there's Horon, there's Namin. So these are all different, basically, political parties if we were to compare it to like today. So they were all different factions, and Pyeokpa was a Noron faction that was in power at the beginning of Jeongjo's reign, but later became very anti-Jeongjo. So who is also becoming anti-Jeongjo at this stage? Queen Jeongsun. So later, Queen Jeongsun actually became kind of the symbolic center of the Pyeokpa faction, and a really key figure in seizing power after Jeongjo died. So remember, she was really young when she married King Yeongjo, so even when people were dying and Jeongjo was dying, Crown Prince Hado was dying, she was actually still really young. So she was in the game for a while. And after Jeongjo died, the young Sunjo took the throne. He ascended the throne, but as he was super young, Queen Jeongsun was able to take control of the Regency. So yeah, we've kind of really briefly, quickly covered, the rise and fall and the process of Queen Jeongsun's life and how she became queen and her relationship with many different royal family members. I personally think she's a really interesting character, but I don't know how you think about her. But if you think that, this is kind of interesting, then I would, highly suggest that you go research into this, because so much of Korean history and East Asian history in general isn't super well known by like the general public, I think, just globally, compared to things like, the American Civil War that like kind of everyone knows. Anyways, this is kind of why am I blabbering. Anyways, yeah. If you you thought that Queen Jeongsun was an interesting historical figure, then I would highly suggest that you go look into her. And yeah, I hope you find more interesting information and that your love for Joseon dynasty history only grows. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye!